Hello and welcome to this tutorial. In this one we're gonna tackle how to handle multiple activities in your app. So an activity, remember, is an Android screen. So when you launch an app, you're viewing a particular screen that's an activity. So we're gonna learn how to launch one activity from another, and also how to pass data from one activity to another, and also how to start an activity and then get a result, like a data back from the activity that you started. So we're gonna do those three things today. So again, if anything seems unfamiliar, like anything about basic Android, you should watch the previous tutorials about how to get started, how to install everything, and also the basics of Android programming, because I've done some pretty extensive tutorials, but they were mostly on one activity only. So this is just covering the multiple activities part. Okay, so I have my environment running here. I have an emulator here that's starting up. Right, so create a new project, Android application, uh, multi-activity, just call it that. Give it some name here, tutorial. Right, gonna leave most, gonna put the minimum on 4, target at 4.3, just because I don't really care about that for this simple tutorial, and my emulator is running 4.1, so to fit in there. Again, all this has been covered in previous tutorials. If anything feels strange or unfamiliar so far, okay, yeah. Right, so the once you create okay, gotta wait for these things to load here to build. I'm gonna get rid of this on create options menu. This is if you want to create a menu. We're not going to be doing that. So it creates this activity by default, just when you create a project. So the layout file is over here. Remember, we want 2 of these, so I'm just gonna copy everything over. I'm gonna copy this layout file here, paste it. Activity, I'm gonna call it 2. I'm gonna try to keep it, focused on this subject, because I know most people leave these videos after 5 minutes, but 5 minutes you're not gonna cover much when you're trying to learn something, so try to stick around. Right, so I have activity 1 and activity 2. I'm gonna change the layout here. It points to activity 2. So I have activity main here. Just change this, double click that, change the text here. Bad practice, you shouldn't put strings in here. You should put them in the strings file, but for learning like this, I think it's fine. We're just trying to demonstrate the activity stuff. We don't really care about all the other things. Oops, doesn't matter, I guess, but right, so activity 2. What I want to do here is put a button, like we had in a label and a button. So button, I'm just gonna leave it button 1, button act 1, just so we can differentiate the two. I'm gonna put a button in this one too. Button act 2. And the label, I guess we can use this label and this label, so that's fine. Right, so what we're gonna do is go to our first activity here, bind that button in the layout to our code here. My keyboard is, there you go. Control space, button 1, import the button. There's a shortcut for that, but I can never remember. I'm not a big shortcut guy. I never was. Can never remember the shortcuts. On new on quick listener. Import the on quick listener. There you go. So to launch another activity, we're gonna do the first thing first. Just basic launching of another activity. No passing data, no nothing. So gonna do. We need to create a new intent. So intent go to new intent, and in this intent we need to pass the context, the application context, and the class we want to launch. So we do get. This context stuff can get a little tricky. There's activity context, application context. You can Google that and you'll see it's how to do these different contexts. But here it's get application context and the class we want to start. So that's activity2. Activity2.class. Right. So we need to import the intent. Then what we do with this intent is we start. So activities have a method called startActivity, which accepts an intent, and this will be used to launch the second activity. Well, before you do that, you need to go to your manifest here, Android manifest, double click that, go to applications. You need to add this activity to your manifest. So every activity which you have in your app has to be added to the manifest. We're just gonna go add here. This is a common source of errors. I forget this a lot. You create the code, the layout, and then you forget to add it in here, and when you try to launch it, your app will crash. So I click browse there. It will search. So it's searching for any activities. Searching for these things here. So it found that activity 2. Go select that. Okay. Save. And now this activity has been added to my manifest. You can see it here. You can do this in code. Again, my head is not very good at remembering the XML syntax. You can do that if you want. Right. So that should be it. Let me see if we can start here. Okay. So right click on project, run as Android application, and it's building here. So this is the first activity. We click the button. Hopefully everything works. The second activity launches. So you see we went from activity 1 to activity 2, and then we go back. We go to the previous activity. So that's how Android. You don't need to put. Usually don't put back buttons in an Android app because that's not how Android works. Android has a back button. Unlike the iPhone, only has one button, which takes you to the home screen. All Android phones must have a back button. So use the back button. Don't put back buttons in your application. Then your apps sort of look weird. Okay, so that's that. That's a simple case taken care of. Launching another activity. And so now we're gonna pass some data. So the way you pass data is you put it. It's called an extra. You put it in the intent. So this intent object here has these overloaded put extra methods. So as you can see, you can put a boolean array, bundles, bytes, byte array, character sequence, which is basically a string. Uh, uh, so int array. So let's say you want to pass an int. Say I want to pass my age, right, from one activity to another. So what is name here? Name is an identifier for this value we are passing, so that on the other side we can grab it. So we can say give this just any string name here. So say user age, right? So on the other side we're gonna grab user age because you can pass multiple things. So let's say age here, I want to pass 30. That's my age. I'm very old. So you want to put an extra there, user age 30. You're gonna grab that on the other, and you can put other things. So you can put username. You can pass what they are calling a character sequence, but the string is a type of character sequence in Android. So you can pass this your name as well. So whatever you want, you can put it in there. So that's that. Usually I would recommend also you put these in its own class, these values, because you have to use the same values on the other side. So you create this situation where if you change this, you have to go and change it in the other activity. So it's best to put this in a constant class, and then you just call them as constants. Then you're always sure you're getting the correct values. Anyway, in activity 2, what you're gonna need to do here is get the intent. So that intent that created this here that you use to launch the second activity, you can get it from this side, and then you can pull out those values you want. So what I'm getting is an int, it's age, right? So I'm gonna do is get the intent. So that gives us back an intent object. So and then we're gonna get the data from the intent. So get int extra, right? We passed in an int. So get int extra, that's the one we want right there. There's also a string extra if you wanted to get the name. Actually, let's get both here. So we're gonna get this int extra. The name again has to be the same, the name of the item we want to get, and the default value. So default value is what value does age get if for some reason it cannot get this age from the intent. So let's say maybe you misspell this, right? So this won't exist in the intent, right? Because it's a different thing. So the default value is what it will get. So you can put, for example, -1 if you want. Then you can check for the negative number and say, okay, this thing didn't pass correctly. Or you can put a default age if you want. So it depends really on your app and what you're trying to do. I'm just gonna put -1 here, and I'm gonna remember to put that correctly, which is that one right there. And then I give username. So I'm gonna declare a string here, name. Again, get the intent. I'm just gonna copy that. So the get string is slightly different in that get string s does not have a default. So you have to be careful here. Again, user name. It depends on what you're doing with your with your app, because I mean if it doesn't get this username, this might be null or might be empty. So you have to be careful again what you check, what you're getting there. Right, so we got the age, we got the name. Now we're gonna put it in this label. We have a label right here, activity 2. Let me just check what that's called. Text view, I'm gonna call it act 2, just to differentiate it from the one in the other activity. Right, so we wanna get the text view. Text view, it helps when you spell things right. Just gonna call it label because I'm lazy. Text view, find view. Let I read it. Text view act 2, that's the one we want, and we import the text view. Right, so and then we're gonna use this name and this age to put my name and my age on the activity. So txt label dot set text character sequence. Again, text is a type, string is a type of character sequence. So your name is gonna concatenate my name there is, and then you are concatenate the age there, years old, right? So that works here because his age is an int, but we are concatenating it with a string, so it becomes a string. Otherwise, you'd need to convert this age into a string. You can't just, when you set text, you need to pass a string, or I mean a character sequence to be more precise. You can't pass an int, so convert that to a string if you just had the age. I've run into some issues with that. Okay, so I think that's it. Right, so let's run our application here, multi-activity, and hopefully we're passing everything correctly. I can't foresee any immediate issues here. Installing, you can see what's going on there. Let me just double check that it's loading. Yeah, I believe that's correct. Let it launch. Right, so this should pass our age and our name to the second activity. Right, so you are Roman and you are 30 years old, so you can see that's working correctly. We are passing data from one activity to another. Now, one thing is you might wonder is how do I pass an Java object? Let's say you have a class, say a class student, right? So you create a class in your first activity, a student is equal to new student, blah blah blah. You fill in some values, name, age, so on and so forth. Now you want to pass your student object from one activity to another, and to do that through the intents, what you need to do is you have to make your app implement either parcelable or serializable. Now, this tutorial is this is a bit deeper than I would go into this tutorial, but you can read up on it. So basically, these are Java concepts. You can either implement parcelable or where's serializable or serializable. So serializable is easier to implement, but parcelable, I can never pronounce that, is much faster. So you can see a speed comparison here. You can see parcelable is much faster on Android. So you should probably be implementing this if you want to pass plain POJOs, they call plain old Java objects between activities. But to pass strings and primitive values like this, it's pretty simple, as you can see. Now, so the third thing we wanted to do is start an activity and then get a result from that activity. So we're gonna do that now. Back here, I'm gonna blow some of this away. Let me just comment it out. Right, you could do both. You could pass activities both. I mean data both ways. Actually, let's just leave that there. Right, but what you need to do when you want a result is you don't use start activity anymore. You use start activity for result. So again, great name here. A very self-explanatory name here. Start activity for result. So I'm starting an activity and I want a result from the activities that I have started. So again, you put an intent here and a request code. So what a request code is a number identifying this particular uh, request for result, right? So you're requesting a result, and this number, so just say 100 here, will identify this particular request, because in this one activity you could have multiple of these, right? You could be asking for start activity for result somewhere else here for a completely different activity and a completely different thing. So when it comes back, how will you know which request it's coming back for? So that you'll know by this code here. So the best thing to do here is to extract this into a constant. Uh, Call it anything you want. Request code 1. Let's say if you have 1, 2, 3, or if you actually were doing something, give it a real name. So request code function 1 or whatever it is you're trying to do, right? Good coding practices and such. So this is now a constant here, and we're going to use that in a minute. So right, we're starting an activity for result. So in activity 2, after we got a button here, right? In activity 2, so btn 2 is equal to, what I want to do is when we click the button, I want to send the result back. You could do it other ways. You could also just use the back key, but that's, yeah, I mean, it depends on the flow of your app, so I can't really advise you too much on that. So unless I know what the app is actually doing. So we're gonna have a button that says done, and then we're gonna send data back to the first activity. So button 2 dot set on click listen, new on click. Oh, boom, 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 boom. All right, again import this. I need to remember that keyboard shortcut to help me out here. Right, so what we want to do here is there's a function in activity called set result, and you can see the set result. You can either use a simple one, set result, so which just takes an int a result code. What the result code is it tells the other activity, the activity that started this activity, what the result, if the result has been successful or unsuccessful. So let's imagine you are doing something more complicated in this activity. Let's say you are downloading a file, and then when you click OK, you want to let the first activity know if the file has been successfully downloaded. So it's either true or false. It's going to be either result has succeeded or has failed. So you can see there are these values here you can put in this result code. So it's usually either OK or cancelled. So and the second one is you can do the same, put the result code, but also include an intent. So you put any data you want to pass back in this intent. So the same way you did from activity 1 to 2, now you're going to do sort of from 2 to 1, right? So let's use the second one. I'm talking too quickly. I'm trying to make this video short because I tried to make this video before and it was like 50 minutes. So I know YouTube people, you guys don't have that attention span there. People want short cat videos, eh? Don't have any cats. Okay, import the intent. Right, so this is an intent here. We didn't put any data in it yet, so let's put some data in it. Let's say intent that put extra. Let's put what will we put? Should we put a string? Put a string. Oh, you put it. Let's put an int. I'm gonna do some math here. You are no. Uh, dog years. I'm gonna take this. Can I access this here? I wonder. I can't. I'm going to put fine. Now I'm confusing the math. Anyway, I wanted to put dog years as a joke, but I don't want to confuse things. Okay, I'm just gonna put the dog years here. What am I in dog years? 7. What is that? 200 and is that times 7? I think it's times 7. Right. So 30 times 7 is what? 210. I think. Right. In case for those who don't know who are watching, every human year is equal to 7 dog years. So that's what I'm doing here. Taking the 30 here multiplied by 7, I get 210. Just a joke. You can pass anything back once again. Right, so results okay, dog years 210, and right, so you set the result. Now you set the result, but how do you close this second activity, right? So you can do it with finish. So finish, it means you are done with this activity, you're sort of closing it, and Android will automatically take care of going back to the previous activity. That's how Android works. You can look at this, look it up, activity stack, activity, and so on and so forth. Right, so now how do we get the value that's coming back from the other activity, right? We need to implement on activity results. So what I usually do here is go to, you can right click also, or go to source up here, or right click source, override implement methods. So this will show you all the methods in the activity class which you can override or implement. So what the one we're looking for is on activity result, this one here. Take that, Click OK, and it will put this skeleton in. So it's just gonna fill it out here. So as you can see, it's returning a request code. So request code is this one here. So it went that way. Now to the second activity. Now it's coming back. So it will help you identify which request it was that's coming back with the result now. And you see there's a result code, which is this one we put in right here. So that will be use it to check if the activity has successfully returned the result, and then the intent. Obviously, this intent right here with the data in it, right? So what you usually do here, because there's a possibility you could have multiple request codes. Here we only have one, but in a more complex app you'd have probably a few, and then you figure out which one you are trying to handle. So you can use a switch here, or you can use an if. I think an if is a little cleaner. If request code is equal to our request code, right? Is equal to this request code, then do this. Oops, what happened there? Right? God. Right? So if that's the request code, do this. And then here in here we need to check if the result has been successful. So result code is equal to result. This result okay is an Android constant, so it's in the Android code somewhere. I didn't create this one, so that's so you know, in case you're wondering. Right, and you could do something else result if the result code is something else, right? Here I don't want to do that, but if it's say result failed, do something else, maybe display a message or something, you know. So right, so we have that label here. Change the name here. Text view act 1. Right. So what I want to do here is I'm gonna create. I need to create a text view here. I'm gonna just create it out here so I can access it and you call it label again. Right. So in here I need to bind it to the code. And I obviously declared it up here, so it will be visible in here as well, because if I just declared it in here like I did the button, I wouldn't be able to access it. So you know, Java stuff, scope and stuff. Right, so r.id dot text view act 1, right? Need to import this text view, right? And then so here I'm gonna set the text txt label. Oops, dot set text. I'm gonna put the you are right. So let's just leave that alone for a minute. I have this intent, right? This intent is called data, so I'm gonna get data. Oops, int years is equal to data dot get. We put in an int, remember, on the other side, so we're gonna go get int extra, and we're gonna use the name here, which is dog years, if you remember. I believe it's dog years right there, and a default value if we want to give a value. So I might put -1. I don't know. The only reason I'm putting -1 because you might want to check it, you know, if it's returned the correct value. So you want to check, might want to say if not equal to -1, -1 not equal to years, then do whatever you want. So you know, again, depends on the application you're trying to write. What happened here? I think it's still correct, but okay. So I'm getting this int here. You are years. You are. You are dog years old. Obviously not the most useful application because we've hard coded the values, but obviously you could just have taken the age and multiplied it. Then it will still be a pretty useless application, but at least it works. You are right. So that's it. Now we should get a result back from the second activity. Let's try to launch that. Oops, 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 oops. Oof. Time flies when you're having fun, huh? I mean, I did this pretty quick. It's still 30 minutes. Okay, okay, okay. Launching. I think this launching also is taking too long. So please, people, subscribe, comment, upvote. Tell me anything is not working, what you want to see. I'll make new tutorials as I come up with ideas. So button 1, click that. So this still works. Your name is Roman, you're 30 years old. Remember, we're passing Roman and 30. And then this one should take us back. And now it says you are 210 dog years old. So we have gotten a value back from the second activity into the first activity. So that's it. Okay, people, subscribe, upvote, Twitter, whatever. You know what you kids are doing nowadays. Okay, thanks a lot. Peace.